Okay, welcome, everybody. This is a big day. This is day one of learning Python. So, congratulate yourself for clicking on the video because today it's gonna be like 5 minute quick introduction into this course that I'm putting together on learning Python, in one sitting. I haven't finished it yet, so it technically cannot be done in one sitting, but this is what we are going to code up by the end of this tutorial. I can explain how it works, but it might look complicated to you, and that's kind of the point, is because you'll sort of learn the magic in like just literally a few videos, that's it, of how to make something list like yourself. And all this, you could call it like an AI clone that talks like you. So the more text you put in, the better it would be. So maybe if you like wrote a book or you wrote an essay, you would put in your example essay here, and then you would run it, and then this could generate more text based like you, kind of like ChatGPT, um, if it could be in its most simple form. And that's great. So that's exactly what we're going to lead up to. I don't want to talk anymore. I want to just like get right into the code. I want to get busy. And I want you to write your first lines of code like right now. So the link to this sort of course file or whatever, this practice thing is in the description. So go there, click on it, and then you'll be taken to this sort of website that has a mixture of text and a mixture of code. So you'll probably be able to tell the difference. And so if you scroll down past the introduction, then we get into part one, which is what we're going to cover today. And so here we go with our first line of code. 1 + 1. And the point here is that code could be very, very simple. If you've used a calculator before, in my mind, that's technically writing code, because all you're doing is you're typing something in a certain way where you and the computer sort of agree of the format that you're typing in. Because the computer can't understand like English, you have to sort of speak in a way that both of you can go back and forth and understand, aka a language, aka a programming language. And right now we're doing Python, which basically just means Python has its own sort of specific rules for how to speak, much like English or Spanish or whatever. So programming languages are very much like real human languages in that sense. So we have 1 + 1, and so what do we think should happen? It's going to output 2. So any of these code blocks, you just click the play button, and it will run the code for you. So we have 1 + 1 as our very first line of code. So give yourself a pat on the back, and congratulations. So we can step it up a bit to do some more calculations. Why don't you get in there and edit some of these numbers? Oopsie. So yeah, go in, edit some of these numbers, and see what happens, right? It's just basically doing math. It's like the same thing as a calculator. It looks maybe a little different than on a calculator you've used, because that's just because we're typing it in the Python language, which looks a little bit different than calculator language. But that shouldn't scare you. The point is not to memorize any of this. It's just to dive into a little bit of code. Okay. So that was a bit of an introduction on, your first line of code, but now it's time for you to start writing some code. And so we're going to start with what I call the atomic units of code. So we've just seen a bunch of numbers, and that's where we're going to start, is with numbers. And just like in math class, you can create something called a variable, which is essentially just storing a value. Like you've done it in math a bunch of times. I'm not going to explain really more what a variable is. It's really just x = 69, x = 3, x = 1, It can be anything, right? So if I just print out, or if I just want to output what is x, right? It's 69. Like a variable is just a named value. And so you can remember this other math we had before. We can save it into the dollars in my bank account. And so there's my bank account value. So, right, we're just storing a number in a variable. That's like the atomic unit of coding. And so you can do math with variables just like you've done in math class. So x has that value from before, right? Or x was 69, so it's like 69 plus 69 plus 2 times 69. And that is y, right? Okay. So those are variables. So now, if you have this open, then you should go and actually try and write your very first line of code, which should be super exciting. So now we want to make a new variable called z that equals 10. And so just make sure to click the play button when you do that. So go ahead, give it a shot, and then that's kind of what we're going to do, like a back and forth between me and you. Okay, so give it a shot. Okay, now you're back, and we're making a variable called z equal to 10. So you saw how to make x equal to 69, and so now I'm going to do z equals 10. Very simple, but also your first line of code, so huge congratulations there. It's the start of a massive journey to you being a crazy programmer, helping the world, solving problems, doing many great things. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit more, and we're going to add z to y. I mean, I don't know if this is like insanely trivial. Okay, I changed the value of something back there, so it's not 13, but hopefully you get the point. Okay, so those are variables, right? They store a number, and you can do math with them, in the same way. Feels very much like typing on a calculator, and that's sort of the analogy that I think is really good to start off with. Okay, so really just the last point in this introduction is that we've been just typing code on one line pretty much, and as you've seen in our final project, it's many lines, right? So code executes from top to bottom, line by line. So it executes this line, executes this line. There can be spaces, it's not a big deal. And then this line, this line, this line, and this line. And then finally we'll output this right here. So right now it's outputting 8, which is the answer of x plus y plus z. So if you go and do the math, x equals 1, y equals 1. So x equals x plus 1 is 2. Make sure that makes sense. Y equals y plus 1 is 2. And then z equals x times 2, which is 4. So 2 plus 2 plus 4 is 8. So I think I asked here, yeah, so we wanted to output 12. So if you want to go and do the math, I give you some hints here. So we would want 4 plus 4 plus 4 down here. So we should just change this to 2, I believe, because then, actually, sorry, this will be 3 plus 3 plus 6, because this will be times by 2. So, doing some math. If you don't like math, then don't worry, that is the end of our math in this tutorial. Okay. So that is the extent of this part 1. I don't want to make it a long video. I really just want you to go in, see what some code is. You just read your first lines of code. You just wrote your first lines of code. And that first step is really all it takes to dive into the world of programming. You can call yourself a programmer. You've done it before. And we are on our way to coding an AI clone that can talk in the style of an essay that I give it. And if you want to think about it this way, it's really like ChatGPT. If you were to give it, maybe we could put in an essay, but if we were going to times that by 1 million, or 100 million, that's really where the roots of ChatGPT come from. So maybe that's kind of cool. So great. I think that's all I wanted to talk about in the first one. I'm working on adding more sections to this, so stay tuned as we learn Python together and build this AI clone. Okay, so I'll see you next time. Stay tuned.